Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Julie Spring, and I'm the Associate Director for the Center for Student Success. And it is one of my privileges to be able to work with all of you and work with these parent hours. So we wanted to thank you so much, first and foremost, for joining us. I'm going to ask our panelists to join me real quickly if possible, so everybody can say a quick hello, and then we'll lay out a little bit of what the evening is going to look like. Thanks, guys. We also have Jared and Jeff who will be joining us momentarily. Everyone, I will also apologize to all of our families. We have one panelist who is trying to join us, and for whatever reason, it keeps leaving her. Oh, wait, I may be able to make a change now. Give me 1 second. Nope, I still can't move her over. We're trying to move her over from attendee to panelist to join us. And for whatever reason, it just keeps telling me I can't do that. So we're going to continue to work on that. What I am going to do, like I said, I want to first thank you again for coming and let you know that what we will do throughout the evening is have some presentation, but we're also going to leave time for some Q&A. So I just want to ask you all to take a look at the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and you will notice that there is a nice little Q&A feature. You'll be able to work with all of us who are on the panel. So we will take turns trying to watch that, monitor that, make sure that those questions are answered. What we do often do is I will actually read some of those questions out for the panelists sometimes. Sometimes it's a little bit easier. You ask a question and it might be something that everybody would like to benefit from. So I will stop them here or there to make sure that we do that. But again, what I would like to do right now, I think, to have us get started is just to ask each of our panelists to give us a quick introduction of who they are, why they're here, and then we'll see if we can get started. So Chrissy, you want to lead us off?
That sounds good. Thank you, Julie. Hi, my name is Chrissy Riley. I'm an assistant director here in the Center for Student Success. I'm a first year advisor, and so I work with primarily first year students in the College of Arts and Sciences, as well as the director of orientation here at UHart. So your student probably had some correspondence with me throughout the summer as we orientated them to UHart Life. So a little bit later on, I'll be talking how the Center for Student Success is here to support students as they transition through, spring semester and navigating kind of life as it is now here at UHart. So we'll get a chance to speak further in a little bit.
Thanks, Chrissy. Emily, if you wanted to jump in and introduce yourself, and I do apologize, Emily, we have Tracy's information up, so if you just want to clarify that, I'm so sorry about that.
No, that's all right. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Burns. I work in Accessibility Services, which is the university's disability service provider's office. So we work with students who use academic accommodations at the university. Tracy Carlson is the director of Accessibility Services, but I am also a good contact to get in touch with us.
Thank you. Wonderful. And Jared, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you also want to introduce yourself and explain that we're doing the best we can to get Pat Morelli in here, I'm going to email her with one more thought.
Hi everyone, I'm Jared Rubin, fourth year math major. I also tutor in the centralized tutoring center, math, physics, and computer science. And yeah, my other colleague, Margaret Hoffbauer, couldn't be here today, but I'm here instead.
Thank you so much. And of course, last but not least, Jeff.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeff Berta. I'm the Director of Counseling and Psychological Services, also known as CAPS, and we are the therapists on campus. So I'll be talking to you a bit about mental health and the services we could provide for your students if they're hitting some bumps in the road and might need some support. Thanks.
Thank you so much, all of you. If you could just give me one more second, I'm just shooting this off. I imagine Pat can likely hear us. So Pat, I apologize wholeheartedly if you can hear us and can't join us. I do want to let you know that I just sent you another email with a new link, and I'm hoping that that might work for you to be able to hop in. But we will do what we have to do until we get that squared away. So I think what we'll do is, Chrissy, why don't you lead us off and talk a little bit about the Center for Student Success, so we'll go from there.
All right, that sounds good, Julie. So Here at the Center for Student Success, we like to call ourselves like the one-stop shop. So we kind of catch all and triage out if we need to, or kind of work in-house to get students the best answers to their questions. So we advise them, we hopefully answer their questions. If we don't know the answers, we make sure that we find someone who does. But we're here not only to help them with guidance academically, but also personally. We understand that first year students, they are going through a tremendous amount of growth this first year, first semester, their second semester. And on top of that, we've now added, the middle of a pandemic. So it's a lot for them to handle as they navigate, balancing academics, balancing how to make friends, being away from their support systems, working through their own mental health, how we can get them in contact with CAPS, how they can stay up in their classes and get them connected to the centralized tutoring center. So we kind of work alongside all these different offices, especially even accessibility services. So if a student has accommodations and they don't know how to get those accommodations in class, we make sure they get in contact with Emily and her team as well. So we kind of catch all. So we're here to help guide them navigate University of Hartford life, know what support services we have on campus. Oftentimes students don't know how much support they have on campus. So we just try to make sure that they're familiar with how to reach all these great people. And we also are here to help them navigate kind of their own struggles as they are, working with even building rapport with their professors. So this semester, we're doing some great initiatives, hopefully to make sure we're catching all of our students' needs and meeting them where they're at. One thing we've decided that was really important is, yes, we send emails to first year students. Yes, we send emails to students. But if they're anything like any other students that we have ever met, they don't always check their emails as frequently as we would like them to. We all check our emails. Mine's attached to my phone, but we can't always have that same expectation for students. So we're doing text message check-ins, which actually has been tremendously helpful. It yields a much faster response. You're probably not surprised to hear that, especially if you have children and you email them, they probably wouldn't respond, but if you text message them, they'll likely respond. So all of our first year students are reaching out to their students, just checking in. We just did a text message check-in last week where it was, what matches the emoji are you feeling? Are you feeling happy? Are you feeling a little stressed? Are you feeling completely overwhelmed? We need to bring you in and make sure you're either getting to Jeff's office or we're getting you to the centralized tutoring center to get that, help with that math class. So that was been tremendously helpful. And again, it just is another way to open communication with our first year students and all of our students here at UHeart. So text message check-ins, we'll continue to send text messages. Like I said, it's a really fast way just to get in contact with them. So if your student doesn't have their cell phone listed accurately, and we've been texting you, we do apologize. So just make sure that you check in with them and say, hey, have you made sure your University of Hartford cell phone is posted? I hear a rumor that the Center for Student Success might be sending out text messages. The last thing we want to do is be text messaging mom and dad and asking you how CAP's going, because you probably don't know. So we're going to be doing text message check-ins. We'll continue to do that. So we also have a platform we use. It's called Compass. So that allows us to do a few different things. You might have heard your student saying like, I got a kudos, and you're like, what in the heck does that mean? That's just kind of our way of saying like, thumbs up, pat on the back, you're doing awesome. So I teach a few classes here at UHeart, and so I'll send kudos out to my students who are, actively participating. They're turning in all their work. They're excelling in their exams. They're being a great, peer to, their classmates. And so I might send them a kudos just to let them know, like, keep up, you're doing a great job. A flag, it's similar to a kudos in the sense that it's on the other end of the continuum. So for this, it just means something's not necessarily going quite right, and you want to remedy the problem and the issue before it gets exacerbated. So a professor can send out a flag through Compass. This not only alerts all of the first year advisors and all the faculty advisors, it also alerts the student. So they know if something's not quite right in chem. Maybe you missed a chem report, maybe you missed an exam, maybe you didn't do so well in that exam, but it allows us to reach out, whether it's through text message, whether it's through an email, whether it's through a phone call, to make sure that we're getting them the support they need, make sure they're attending classes if there's a reason they're not attending, or if maybe we need to get them in contact with someone in CAPS too. So flags and kudos are great. We like to know when our students are doing exceptionally well in their classes, but we definitely want to know when they're struggling a little bit. We're also redoing a bunch of initiatives throughout This semester, we're calling them Wellness Wednesdays. So every Wednesday, there's a different initiative that we are advertising just to make sure our students are staying healthy, whether it's, drinking enough water, whether it's exercising more, whether it's making sure they have a stress outlet, all different ways to manage and cope and deal with their own stress. So we're doing these little Wellness Wednesdays just for them to check in. We've done some mindfulness activities with them. So we have some staff in our office who are really into health and making sure our students are being the best versions of themselves. We'll constantly be sending out health tips as well. Like I said, there's a big push. One that's coming up is making sure that they're eating right and they're drinking enough water. These are all things that maybe they hear from you guys. We're just here to kind of support and reiterate, making sure that, yes, our students are staying healthy, especially during a time like this, making sure they're wearing their masks, washing their hands, eating the right food, taking their vitamins, all things that, we're trying to help kind of your cause on how to keep them healthy. And then continuing one-on-one meetings with our CSS staff. So making sure that as first year advisors, that we're continuing to meet with them one-on-one. They're not in a class with us this semester. So we just want to make sure we're continuing that open communication, building that rapport with them, making sure that they're getting the help they need, staying connected. So continuing to have those meetings. Some of our students will be doing coaching meetings with us, which is, again, a one-on-one meeting. They meet with us 8 times throughout the spring semester. So just really making sure that they don't feel forgotten, they know who to contact, and we can get them to the right support services. I've had a bunch of students meet with me just on time management, right? This is spring semester, the workload may be picked up a little bit from the fall. So how do they manage their time? How do they use a planner? They've never used a planner before, and now they're deciding, which is great, that they want to use one. So figuring out what is the best version of that for them. Is it a old school, I'm going to write everything out, or is it something electronically that we can make sure they're familiar with that platform? Study tips. So we make sure if maybe they're not at the quite point where they want to get a tutor, maybe it's just working on some active study strategies. Sometimes students don't know the difference between passive studying and active studying. So we make sure that we explain that to them and how best to utilize all of their class materials so they're really effective in these classes. So that's just kind of a little glimpse of what we're doing this semester, but really the biggest thing is we partner with all these great support services here that you're going to hear from, and making sure that if they need to get in contact with them, they know how to do that, because like I said, our office is kind of like a big net. We kind of catch everything and kind of triage out as we need to. So that's what we're doing here to help them.
Thanks, Chrissy. That was excellent. I appreciate it.
Of course.
So we're going to try something a little unique here. Poor Pat Morelli is here, able to join us. She can see everything. She can hear us. But unfortunately, we just cannot get her to that panelist view. But I think if I go into attendees and unmute her, she might be able to read her slides. And then, Jared, get ready, because she might pass things off to you too. So we're going to see what we can do, but we're going to get you all the information you need. So let's give me 1 second to see if we can do that for her. Oh, here we go. Okay. Pat, are you able to hear us?
Yes.
Wonderful. And we can hear you. Nope. Now we can hear you again. Okay. Are you able to see your slides okay?
I can see my slides and I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We certainly can. And if I could maybe just get an attendee to put a quick note in the Q&A or the chat and let us know that you can hear Pat, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, everybody.
Pat, I apologize.
No, I have no idea what the glitch is. I've never felt like a nefarious interloper before. And I was, struggling. And then they send you all of these, substitute passwords and whatnot, and they weren't working. So, and I should tell you, even though you can't see me, that I look positively adorable this evening. So, anyway,
Well, we just got confirmation from an attendee that they can in fact hear you. So here we go.
Okay, so I'm not going to go through everything on this first slide, word by word, but I just want to put in a pitch for the tutors. We have, as it says here, 70 peer tutors, and we cover all of the basic disciplines, mathematics and the physical sciences, business and engineering and other courses, other disciplines, even the studio courses, for ear training and piano and other instrumental courses, and of course, academic writing across the disciplines. So we've been working fully remotely since March 30th, when we came back after lockdown. And I can't say enough about Jared and Margaret and the rest of my my tutors. Listen to me, I sound like a mother hen. The centralized tutoring center tutors are absolute creative and inventive students, and they'll try anything to reach out to a student and serve that student and give that student what he or she needs in the moment. So we've been working remotely on many platforms. I'm happy to say that most of them have had much more success with their tutoring sessions than I had this evening. So don't go by this example of what happened this evening. We're patient, we're compassionate, we're kind, we're creative. We do the very best that we can to consistently deliver high quality academic support service, but we won't do the work for the students. So that's really important. I think, are you advancing slides, Julie?
Nope, but I certainly can.
Oh, okay. So,
You ready for the
okay.
next one?
Yeah, I think I've probably covered some of this already. I want to get to Jared so he can give the students' perspective. As it says here, we don't do the work for our students. We provide guidance and feedback. We make sure they understand the material and what the professors are looking for. We professors are not always as clear as we think we are. And so sometimes we have to have other people, kind of break down the code for the students in our classes. And we provide general advice about other wraparound services. The other point I want to make about this slide too is that we will not do any take-home quizzes or tests unless we have your professor's approval. Another important point to note, and it might actually be on the next slide, is that in these times of all remote or nearly all remote learning, hybrid learning, technology obviously is a staple, but it can be an issue and it can be a matter of confusion for some students. Now, it's easy to say on the one hand, we should be pretty okay with technology at this point, but keep in mind that every student is different, every semester is different, every course, every professor, every lab, everything is different when a new semester rolls out. So I like to say to folks, if a student is having any difficulty with technology, if they could send us an email and just get into that first Zoom meeting or into our Collaborate course, we can help them with that. I promise we can help them with that. So I think now I'm going to turn it over to Jared. Is that right? Is Jared going to cover his and Margaret's remarks about what characterizes a really good tutoring session, what the tutor is looking for, and what the tutee or student should be prepared to do, or how they should engage? You want to take it, Jared?
Yep. So this is some of Margaret's perspectives on her tutoring. And so she says that the student should come prepared and sort of have a clear idea of what they need help on. So I guess even in my sort of experience, I'd say, coming prepared with questions, being actively engaged. That's kind of the next point. And, I guess a two-way communication that's sort of established in the beginning, especially, and then sort of carried throughout, kind of leading back to, just check constantly. Just if you have nothing to do, just check your email, just check, and then, keep communicating, especially during remote, it's essential to just keep on it, communicate. And so, yeah, so tutoring is clear and with directions, advice, and so, it's the responsibility of the tutor to sort of keep up with the material, but also as well as the tutee, as well. So
Margaret tutors writing as well as physical sciences, Jared. You probably know this. So in that example, for the writing appointments, it's really important that the student will draft his or her own work. We'll provide feedback, we'll ask thought-provoking questions, things of that nature, but the student must write his or her own paper, and then we'll provide the feedback and the guidance to help the student develop ideas or deepen the discussion or gather more research or whatever. Okay, Jared.
If I could just jump in real quickly for either one of you. We have a quick question about how far in advance does a student need to schedule their tutoring session?
Oh, that's a really good
Yeah.
question, and it's actually one of my pet peeves. But I'm going to be nice tonight, Julie, so don't worry. The more advance notice you give us, the better. And that's one of the derivative skill sets that we work on in the tutoring center. And Chrissy will tell you it comes out of their department as well and other departments on campus. It's really important for our students to learn task and time management. So when they know they have something due, they should email the tutoring center right then and there and get their appointment. The appointment will go into Compass, the tutor will be notified, and then as Jared suggested a minute ago, the tutor and the tutee can have an email exchange to confirm the appointment, and so that Jared can send a Zoom link or something of that nature, and then even say, well, exactly what are you working on? What chapter or what kind of a paper or that type of thing. So sooner rather than later. We describe the work we do as triage, but it's not like medical triage. We're not available 24/7, and we don't perform last-minute miracles. We're good. We're not that good. Good question. Okay.
Thank you. Jared, are you ready for your next slide?
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. So this advice is more for, I guess, math, physics, and computer science. Because I guess because of the nature of it, you kind of want to attempt the problems ahead of time and then sort of bring something to the session so that, we're not exactly doing the work for you, as Professor Morelli said, but we're sort of assisting you to gain the requisite knowledge or like skills or build the foundation so that you could then go about doing the ones that you're struggling with. And so, especially during like the pandemic and, being remote, I guess it's tough to stay focused, but I guess being able to stay focused and being properly prepared will sort of elevate your sort of like tutoring session, every time you go. And so, as I said before, thorough communication, just throughout the tutoring sessions, and just maintaining email correspondence, even if you don't need like tutoring anymore, to be like, look, I don't need tutoring, or, at least like an email. Because sometimes, I won't get email correspondence, and, it's just, I guess, the polite thing to do. And yeah, and as well, there's sort of the, like as the role of the tutor, being concise with working, through examples and sort of making sure they're on track and sort of journaling that progress throughout.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jared. So let's hop on over and see what's next. So it looks like we're ready to move on to Jeff, but certainly as we continue to go through the presentation, put those questions in the Q&A as you all think of them. Don't think that we can't go back to topics, because Pat and Jared and Chrissy would be more than happy to assist as we move forward. But let's take a moment and move on to Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to everyone who shared so far. I must say, Pat Morelli is a tough act to follow. And part of me hoping that she wouldn't show up because it's really, really tough. But it, thank you,
Can you hear
Pat.
me now? Can you hear me?
We still can. Yes, we can.
Jeff.
Yes, I mean, it was good to hear you. It was good to hear you. So we do a lot of good work in the counseling center as well. The caveat, we are not miracle workers either, nor are we available 24/7. But I will kind of walk you through a bit of what we can do for your students and what we do offer, and talk to you a little bit about how we, just like many of the other departments, needed to adjust and adapt to COVID. And so, I'm the director of CAPS. I'm a licensed psychologist. We have two other full-time clinical psychologists on staff. We have a master's level clinician, and we also run a very rigorous and well-respected training program for doctoral students. And so we take 4 to 6 doctoral students every year, and a lot of those doctoral students work directly with UHeart students. How it goes these days is that it's easy to make an appointment. All your student would need to do is to email myself or our office coordinator, Liz Inkle, give the counseling center a call, and we'll schedule your student for an initial phone screening. Average time for a phone screening is about 20 minutes, and we ask a lot of questions, as you might expect. Basically, to get a sense of what your student might be struggling with, a little bit of history, and we also, assess for safety and risk to determine how serious the concern might be. After the screening, what we do is we make our best recommendations. I would say most commonly is we would recommend a course of therapy or treatment at CAPS. That usually takes the form of individual sessions, one-on-one with a therapist. Those could be weekly, those could be bi-weekly. And we also offer a number of different therapy groups and wellness workshops. Most students cringe at the idea of going into a group and talking about themselves or looking around the room and seeing peers who might be going through things. And so, we if we think the group might be a good idea, we recommend it, of course. We can't force somebody to do a group, but I must say that once, usually most times students give the groups a chance and they participate for, 2 or 3 sessions. I think one of the benefits that many experience is that students start to feel like less alone, and they start to be able to look around and realize that there's other students on campus who might be struggling with similar concerns. And that in and of itself, I think, could really be healing and helpful. We have a psychiatrist on staff from the Institute of Living who may see students who are considering trying a psychotropic medication, for example, antidepressant, not uncommon. I would say, we really work with students from on all ends of the continuum. And so students who might be coming to us struggling with homesickness, adapting to life on campus with COVID, struggling with stress of academics, all the way, up to, I guess, more serious clinical concerns, clinical depression, students who might struggle with high levels of anxiety. We'll do our best to help them along. If we find that a student really needs more support than we can offer, because we really do offer brief treatment, short-term treatment, then we also have a case manager on staff who helps or who will help and assist that student get connected with a longer-term provider off campus. So that's a service we provide. I do always want to add in that if your student is 18 or older, our services are confidential, meaning, without a release of information signed, we can't speak to anyone, including parents, including, fellow peers or people from different departments. We can't speak to professors. And so basically, like any other therapist you might find out in the community, there's that binding contract that's in place. And we also don't do any kind of mandated treatment or forced treatment. And so, the student is going to have to want to make some changes and take that initiative to get involved in CAPS. And so I always say I like to just wing it and not have slides. So I don't think I have any other slides, do I?
You do not, but you have 2 questions that I would like to ask you, if that would be okay.
Yeah, shoot.
One question is there a cap on the number of therapy sessions a student can have? And the second question is what you are doing, if anything, proactively for students in quarantine and isolation.
Okay, so the first question, there is not a defined limit for sessions. I guess, atmosphere and perspective that we take is to try to help each student in their unique situation. with the mindset of brief treatment, short-term therapy. And so that can kind of look differently depending on the student and their concern. Not unusual for us to work with an individual student weekly for a semester or two. I would say if it goes much beyond that and it really seems like your student might benefit from treatment for all the years while they're here at UHart, then we'll get the wheels turning to get them connected with someone who could provide that. So students who are in quarantine, we tried a number of things last semester. One was having just kind of open drop-in groups where you just basically, we set a time, we had a couple therapists sitting and waiting, and we would send those Zoom links out to students in quarantine. So it was their choice if they wanted to kind of chime in and connect with a therapist to help them cope. I know the Center for Student Success, Chrissy, Jen Siegel, some others who have, I'd say, more of a pipeline, if you will, into the group of students who are in quarantine. What we would do is we would connect and partner with CSS to try to help these students along. And occasionally we'll do like an Instagram takeover with some wellness tips around how to cope with stress, with isolation, with all of the disconnection that many people are feeling these days. And so those are just some things that we've been trying to do to support our students in quarantine.
I apologize, Jeff. 2 more quick questions. And also, Jared and Pat will be coming back to you because there's a couple of questions for you as well, but let's stay with Jeff for a moment. And these are great questions, by the way. Thank you, everyone. Jeff, if a student is in a program at home, do you all like to see a referral and a history from the current provider?
Sometimes, so let me just say, being licensed clinicians in Connecticut, we can really only offer treatment to students who are either residing in Connecticut or residing on campus. And so, if a student is able and willing and wanting to work with a provider that they've been working with and that could work, I always encourage students to just stick with that therapist. If we get a student who comes to the counseling center and we're doing a history and they've had experience working with someone else, I would say it really depends on the individual situation, and sometimes we want to gather that information so we can get a better idea of how to move forward with treatment. And in which case, we would just ask the student to sign a release of information. We would then reach out to that provider and either have a phone call or have them fax over the medical records. And so it really depends.
Okay, perfect. And then one more question. The question was about the hours of CAPS because the family has a heart student who is at HPAC most of the time and feels as though the hours may not work for those students. So is there some sort of plan for that?
Yes. Well, I've never gotten so many questions. This is exciting to be like in the spotlight here. Let me say this. So I understand HPAC, theater, other departments have rigorous schedules, and this has been kind of an ongoing, I guess, point of consideration. What I would say to students who feel like their schedules might be too tight, and it could be absolutely true, is to go ahead and schedule the initial phone screening. And that initial phone screening, again, takes an average of like 20 minutes or so. And so, going into class late, leaving class early, we can do like an 8:30 phone screen. We can do a 4 o'clock phone screening. And then at that point, we will gather our usual information, but in addition, we'll gather a detailed sense of what the student's schedule is. And if it is indeed true that there is no time, and then a couple of things could happen, but if there really is no time, we can offer like a more of an after hours appointment with our case manager to help to get the student connected with someone in the community who can do evening hours or weekend hours. The other idea that we are considering is that we'll if we can gather enough students to have a similar conflict with schedules, we will consider extending our hours for 1 day a week, possibly to 7 o'clock. I've spoken to a number of faculty and professors who think that that would be a good idea, and so we're open to that if we get enough students looking for it, I guess you can say.
Jeff, what are your traditional hours? Somebody else was just asking if you could repeat.
Oh yeah, 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to unmute Pat again. Thank you, Pat. Sorry about that. Pat and Emily, please don't worry. We are going to get to you. I promise you're up next. But Pat and Jared, we have a couple of quick questions back for you. And again, families, this is wonderful. We love that we can get you here with us and you have all these great questions. Hopefully we're getting you all the answers you need. The tutoring questions are, one, are there dedicated spaces for tutoring that were pre-pandemic and that will hopefully, fingers crossed, be post-pandemic? And then the second question is, can you clarify a little bit about tutoring when a student is a Hillier student versus when they leave Hillier?
So, or do you want to take the first one?
You want to talk about the spaces, Jared?
Yeah, I could take the first one. So
And I'll take the second one. Good. Thanks, Jared.
Yep. So, in terms of spaces, like before COVID, we tutored in the bottom of the library, or the lower floor. There's like a little
level, garden level.
Yeah, sorry, but I it's the lower level. But
Yes.
there's kind of like a little left turn, and so you kind of go straight, and then it has there's a bunch of like tables and I guess space for tutoring to go on, and there's like the office, and we recently acquired whiteboards previous to the pandemic, so it's helpful to sort of draw out some stuff. And we also have I guess privatized individual rooms, so I guess if you need to take one of those out for more individualized quiet, there's been tutors who have gone in there as well.
So yes, and in addition to those, in addition to the small rooms adjacent to the business office and that extended space in our little corner, keep in mind that the tutoring center is located in the library. So we have the advantage of being in a building that is conducive to learning and academic pursuits and has resources available and so forth. And we tell the tutors that if they need to go elsewhere in the library, that's fine, as long as they don't forget to check their schedule and make sure they get back to the hub, so to speak, in time for their next appointment. And we're hoping that shortly we can start getting back on ground and in person and using the library again. We're taking things very slowly and cautiously. So the other question had to do with Hillier students making the switch to a major in other programs, other colleges, right, Julie? So Hillier College has Hillier College has some academic support resources, but all registered students at the university can take advantage of the services of the centralized tutoring center. As long as you're registered and you're taking courses at UHart, you can use our services. We don't guarantee that we have a tutor for every course that's being taught. It's kind of hard for some people to get, but I want you to think about that. We don't have a tutor for every single course that's being taught. But as I said earlier, we are very creative and the tutors do amazing work, kind of crossing, from one course to the next, from one level up to the next, and so on and so forth. And so Hillier students are absolutely eligible for the services. And when they finish their studies in Hillier College and go into a different program, a different major in one of the other colleges at UHart, yes, absolutely. We tutor grad students. I'm not in content, but in writing. So we're pretty accessible and pretty open to our students. I want to make a couple of other points very quickly if I can. I promise this is only going to take 2 minutes. In terms of quarantine, we have done special arrangements and game plans for students in quarantine, either when they're in quarantine or when they get out and they have to catch up on things. So if that's a situation for your student, all they have to do is let us know, and we will do whatever it takes, to get them extra services, extra appointments, so they can keep up and catch up when they're ill or if they've been out of the loop for a couple of weeks. The other point I want to make that piggybacks on a point of Jeff's too is the idea of group sessions. When we get really, really busy and we have high demand, we try to encourage students to double or triple up in their tutoring sessions. And sometimes, as Jeff pointed out with his line of work, takes a little bit of nudging, and maybe the student has to become comfortable and see what's cooking and psych everything out. But we have learned from experience that the small group, I'm just talking maybe 2 students or 3 students tops, that works out very well because the students collaborate together, they commiserate, there's strength in unity that way. And we know from the research that collaborative learning is very successful. So we kind of create a sense of community, slightly different dynamic, but nonetheless, we do our part too for group dynamics. Okay, thanks, Julie.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And again, great questions. So Emily, I apologize if this says Tracy, but you're up.
Thanks so much, Julie. Hi, everyone. As I said, my name's Emily. So I'm the Accommodation Coordinator in Accessibility Services. So I work with Tracy Carlson. Our contact information was on the previous slide with Tracy's email. That's actually a perfect way to get in touch with us to initiate contact with our office. If you do have a student that is eligible for academic accommodations due to a documented disability, you can also call our office. I'm in there almost every day now. We are working partially remotely. We only have students in the office really if they're using their testing accommodations, but we like to be available to students in as many ways as possible. Julie, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So if your student is eligible for accommodations through our office, the first thing we ask them to do is to submit documentation of a documented disability directly to our office. The documentation guidelines really depend on the disability itself. So if you go to our website at hartford.edu/accessibility, depending on the disability, it will tell you specifically what we look for in the documentation. So the best way to send documentation would be to send it to Tracy's email directly. And it is reviewed by us, usually in 2 to 3 business days, and then we contact the student to set up a time to do an intake appointment with them. Normally, we would do our intake interviews via video, in person, but now we're doing them via video call through Zoom. And we set up our accommodations with our students during that intake interview. We like to provide students an opportunity to have a back and forth either with myself or Tracy to discuss what would be most helpful for them. When we do create accommodations for the students, we create an accommodation letter and send that out to all of their faculty members by email so that they're aware of the specific accommodations that these students have. And then the students must request their accommodation letters each semester. Oftentimes students think that, they automatically have their accommodations active through their whole academic career, but we do ask them to just fill out a quick form to make sure that they're activating their accommodations for the semester so that we can send their letters out to their professors. And just as a reminder for students who are registered with our office about their testing accommodations, if you do have extended time on quizzes or exams and your quiz or exam is online, you're going to want to contact your professor directly a week in advance of that exam to give them enough time to extend the time. If it is an in-person exam, you would actually call our office to schedule to take the exam in our office, and you can do that by calling the number listed. It's 860-768-4523. And we also ask that students do that about a week in advance, just so that gives us time to prepare to have the student take the exam with us.
Emily, can I jump in with one question?
Absolutely.
So a parent has asked if the accommodations that are set up while a student is in Hillier transitions with them when they move into their major, or do they have to initiate the request again?
Absolutely. So they are eligible as long as they're registered as a university student. All students have access to their accommodations throughout their career here. So we will know when the students are registered for classes in general at the university and send out emails to them to make sure they're activating their accommodations. So we don't require anything additional if they're moving from Hillier to the general campus.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. Was there anything else, Emily, that you wanted to add? I didn't mean to jump to that last slide. I apologize.
Nope, totally fine. That's all. I was just going to say, it's great to see all of you panelists. These are all awesome people. It's so nice to see all of our resources on campus pooled together.
Thank you, thank you. And actually, there's one more excellent question that just popped in, and fortunately, I have the answer. So a parent just asked if tomorrow's webinar is being rescheduled. And yes, unfortunately, we had a last-minute change. We were supposed to have a room selection parent hour tomorrow. Unfortunately, due to some actually amazing changes that they're making to the process, we just need to cross a few T's and dot a few more I's. So tomorrow night didn't seem like a great idea. So we've moved it to March 9th. So all that information should actually be sent out tomorrow. There is a parent guardian email, newsletter that's going out tomorrow, and all the updated information will be in that. But thank you so much for asking that question, because yay, we love the extra publicity. So while we're on it, I will just let you know that yes, we have a few more sessions coming up. So again, they will be next Tuesday, which I want to say is March 2nd. There will be one, and that is the financial aid FAFSA event. The 9th will be the room selection, return of room selection event. And then on April 6th will be our final one for the spring semester, and that will be all things registration. So that should be a popular one, because it'll be, especially for those first year students who are really jumping in on their own at that point. That'll be a great one as well. So great questions. Thank you so much. I'm going to actually unmute Pat again. I apologize. We had a little bit of feedback there. Is there anything that anyone wanted to add before we wrap up? And I will peruse the questions one more time and just make sure I haven't missed anything.
I'll jump in real quick. I think it's quick. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add that our services, should a student get therapy or treatment at CAPS, services are covered under tuition, and so there's no out-of-pocket fee. We don't interface with insurance providers, and so that's not a piece that you don't have to worry about. And I did my best. There were good questions to answer them in a satisfactory manner. If I didn't, just email me or call me, or if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. We do have a couple more questions. Hold on. Okay. Sorry, it was a two-part question. I was confused by the second part, and then I realized it was actually a two-part, and I was missing the first part. Chrissy, this might be you and I, and I'm hoping that we can see if we can get a couple of answers out there. They understand this isn't necessarily about support services, but you know what? We're here to answer all the questions. They are saying that their student received a couple of invites to honor societies, and they're trying to figure out who to connect to figure out which one to take advantage of and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I both can probably answer this. So I guess, yes, there's been a lot of, I don't want to say confusion. There's been a lot of invites that have gone out for honor societies. So depending on which honor society your student got an invite to, first of all, congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment.
Yes.
One of them is called Merit. And I know a lot of my students have emailed me and said, like, what is Merit? So Merit is actually a platform that our Office of Marketing and Communication uses to just basically say, hey, do you mind if we document that you have done really well and exceptionally well here at University of Hartford? Can we possibly connect to your local newspaper or your local whatever it is? Basically, it's just allowing you, the student, to create a profile similar to Facebook and to LinkedIn and put all of their achievements up on there. And so that way, if their local community wanted to give them a quick shout out, all the information is publicized. So that one is Merit. So it's not necessarily an honor society. It's like an honors documentation of all of their accomplishments here. That's kind of how I've been explaining it to my students. And then there is the Honor Society that has gone out. That one, the two contacts for that is Michael Gomans and Adam Silver. So if they have been invited based on their achievements this past academic year or the fall semester, it says it right on the newsletter. The best way for them to get in contact, take, that offer up is the National Honor Society. It is Michael Gomans and Adam Silver. And then there's been another one that went out, because why not? Things come out in threes. Is this one was the oh gosh, Julie, you're gonna have to help me. I'm totally blanking on it. It's not necessarily an honor society as well. It's essentially for helping students become better leaders.
Correct. It's a leadership society.
Leadership society. There's the word. So that one, it is a cost affiliated with that one. There are some, programming that they do have to complete. It's not like they're just invited in and then they have that leadership society, under their belt. They do have to complete some webinars and some future certifications. So it does take some time. But they can span this across, a semester, 2 semesters. So it's not something they have to cram in, just this spring semester. Back many moons ago, I took that offer on and I thought it was great. I loved the trainings, but it can be a little time consuming. So they can spread it across a few different semesters. So there's Merit, which is the platform. There's a National Honor Society club that went out. They can also take part on university honors. So that is another factor. So there's a ways for them to really take advantage of all their great accomplishments here at UHart. And then there's the Leadership Society. So I think I answered that. Hopefully I didn't confuse anyone. If so, please email us. Julie, I don't know, feel free. You can always chime in.
Nope, that was wonderful. And I actually answered and said, if any of this is still too confusing, shoot us over an email at css@hartford.edu, and we're happy to get you all the right information and or connect you with Michael and things like that. Jeff, I got to tell you, you are very popular this evening, so I am thrilled that you joined us.
Nobody wants to talk to the psychologist. This is so strange.
You're doing a wonderful job. This is great.
Oh boy, okay.
I have a question for you, sir.
All right, here we go.
The question is, and I'm not sure that you know this, but you might. How does a student go about refilling a routine monthly prescription on campus?
Student Health Services would be the place to go. I cannot speak for Student Health Services in terms of what they would agree to refill or not agree to refill, but that would be the first place to start. I think that's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Okay. And again, I just popped in the chat there that it would be health services. Okay. Well, it looks like we have another one. Hold on. Christine, I love that comment. I will not share it with the group. Okay. For the question though, how do we suggest? Hold on. Hold on 1 second. Let me read it before I'm saying the wrong thing. This is actually a great question. So Jeff, this is sort of a little bit of an insight, if you will. They're asking, how do you best suggest working with a student who's maybe not necessarily taking advantage of CAPS resources, but the parent is also trying to be respectful of the fact that this student is now 18 and they don't want to be pushing them in a direction per se? Do you have thoughts about how we best support a student like that?
Yeah, it could be tough. I understand, especially when you're trying to get your student or your child that kind of support. No blueprints, but generally speaking, I think just kind of, listen deeply, listen empathically, not kind of do your best not to kind of push or force the issue, more of like let the student come to you. And basically, I guess one way to be, is like, I know I have counseling services here on campus and they could be a good support for some students. Here's their phone number, here's an email. I know that sometimes when parents talk to me, they end up sharing with their child or their student that, I talked to the director or I talked to a therapist, they seem kind of cool, they don't seem that bad. And so taking that first step, I guess, to make the first appointment would be the way to go. I think sometimes students and other people get ahead of themselves a little bit, and they think, well, I don't want therapy, or I don't need therapy. And so to keep it quite simple and say, why don't you just make that first appointment? And once the student makes the first appointment, and we make the recommendations, honestly, they can take them or leave them, but at least they get the ball rolling. Those are just some thoughts, kind of riffing off the top of my head. I can go on, but I don't know how much we're kind of approaching.
No, thank you so much. I was actually,
Okay.
I apologize. Whenever there's a delay, it's because I'm trying to answer a question at the same time.
Okay.
I'm not always paying attention to what's happening in both worlds. I apologize. Karen, I will get back to answering your question momentarily. I promise you'll have an answer before we exit out of the event. And let me just pop down and make sure that we have addressed all the other questions, and it looks like we have. So again, real quickly, if you take a peek at this last screen, you will see everyone's contact information, including myself. But Chrissy and I are both in the same office, so certainly you can contact one of us and reach the other. Emily, again, thank you so much for coming and pinch hitting last minute. We really appreciate it. You gave some great information, and I wholeheartedly apologize that I didn't have your name up there, but you did say that Tracy's email is a great place to reach out to all of you as well. Pat, again, Jared, thank you so much. You guys handled that like champs with our unique challenge, but you did a wonderful job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And unless there's anything else, I think we have wrapped up. Like I said, I have one more question that I'm just going to answer real quickly, but we've addressed all the other ones. And I thank everyone so much, both panelists and families, for joining us. And I hope that you'll join us in future events. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.